Shalom, good evening from Jerusalem, Israel. This is Mr. Lowell Joseph Gallen, founder of the Root and Branch Association Limited, established in the United States of God of Israel, Bless America in New York State in 1981, now celebrating our 45th year. Today is Monday, February 9, 2026, in the Gregorian year. Since it is after nightfall, it is the onset of the 23rd day of the 11th Israelite Hebrew month of Shvat in the Hebrew Israelite New Year 5786. Welcome to episode 25 of our monthly Jewish Roots of Land of Israel Palestinians, Arabs with Palestinians in parentheses, research fellowship seminar with Mr. Tzvi Misinai of Rehovot here in the land of Israel. And his special guest this evening is Palestinian Jordanian leader, Mr. Mudar Zahran, resident in London, England. And now, without further ado, I hand over the mic to Mr. Misinai and his guest, Mr. Zahran. Gentlemen, it's all yours.
Thank you, and good evening or noon for North America. I know Mudar for many years, and we discussed this subject, but over the time, more and more is being discovered about the background of the Palestinians in general, and also about them in Jordan in particular. And on the other hand, the region is going to a direction that nobody knows what should be done, and there's a lot of confusion. And because of this, the importance of my and Mudar's discoveries becomes more and more important and actual. So I have a series of questions to Mudar that I will mention now, and a part of them I will give some background. So Mudar, you describe the Palestinians as the Jews of the Arab world and the last tribe. What do you mean by the last tribe? About the Jews of the Arab world, it is clear they are wiser in general, in average, than most of the other Arabs, let alone that many of the other Arabs are of a Jewish origin as well. But please, can you elaborate on this?
Well, there's a lot of traits that Palestinians in particular exhibit that are very characteristics to Am Israel, or the nation of Israel, or the Ummah of Israel, the people of Israel in general. We can go on and on about that, but the main thing is every Arab country you see, every either banking or governance or health system in that Arab country was more or less established by Palestinians, which is typical Jewish. They are the best doctors, the best lawyers, and the best statesmen. And they mimic the Jews in the United States in a lot of ways, the Jews and the Palestinians in the Middle East. And I give you a very few examples, even though the examples are abundant. The United Arab Emirates education system, the Qatar's education, plus military, plus health systems, the Kuwait everything systems. The founder of the Kuwaiti army was a Palestinian. The two founders of the Kuwaiti Air Force were Palestinians. And you don't need to look further beyond the River Jordan, Yarden, where you'll see our country, which is today's Jordan. It was a desert wasteland before the Palestinians arrived. And here we are with a very hostile ruling regime, a regime that historically obstruct Palestinian enterprise and pragmatism deliberately, plus very mean resources. Look at Jordan. You would, look at Amman, and you would think this possibly an oil-producing Arab country. That said, we have also dominated the banking industry, and I can go into that with the Arab Bank, whose founding family is a showman. I don't know, the name is definitely from Beit Hanina, from Jerusalem, but it definitely very, very resemblant to German names. And the family, I've known some of them, not directly, but through others. When I was studying in the United States, I've known one of them and so forth. The family has a very peculiar, European appearance. But that said, without wasting too much time, Evidence Arami, as a Palestinian, proposes that we are definitely Jewish. Reason for that is everyone I know in Judea and Samaria, the West Bank. Let's go down zero in on the area where I come from, which is opposite to Beit Shemesh. There's a small village by the name of Tayaha, Sora. This is where allegedly Samson the Great managed to, take his Samson choice and kill himself and the Philistines. His alleged tomb is over there. We don't know. There are arguments about whether this is the one or not, but it definitely is the location, because Sara in Arabic means to beat up or to kill. So it's where someone gets killed. So Sara, that village, along with the village of Arkub, including Beit Shemesh, Ishwa, and many other names. Those villages, Beit Atab, those villages, nobody was Jewish. Well, nobody was Muslim just 150 years ago. And 120 years ago, nobody was Jewish. So everybody was Muslim until Jewish until 150 years ago. There's 30 years in between, and suddenly everybody became a Muslim. There's a lot of theory about that, but I'll give you a very quick story. My grandfather's, my mother's father, my grandfather's house was the largest in the village. I've seen photos of it when it was still there. The house, even in today's standards, is considered very modern and considered quite big. So the Egyptian and the Jordanian forces told the people of the village to evacuate in 1948 because it's going to be just 2 hours before they kill all the Jews and finish them up, and then we can return. And 2 hours turned into 78 years. Long story short, the Stern group took over the house. And I think it's Lehi. I'm not sure, but I was told
Lehi.
Lehi. I was told it's Lehi, but whatever it is, it's the Israeli forces took over, and they have photos in the house. It's on a vantage point. They couldn't keep it, so the only solution was to blow it up just in case it falls into the hands of the Arabs again, and they can shoot from that vantage point. So they bombed. They filled the house with dynamite and they bombed it. They left only one part of it, which is the Lion of Judah mosaic. Why would a Muslim man plant the Lion of Judah mosaic into into his house, which is still standing there if you go and visit? It goes on and on and on, but I look at my uncles, their names. We use names that the average Arabs do not use, like the name Yusuf, Musa, Moshe, Ibrahim. So these are a lot of characteristics that goes, that raises a lot of questions. Also the fact that, I'll give you an example. We are the only so-called Arabs who get their children, their boys, circumcised on the 8th day. And I always keep bringing up this story. When my youngest, Daniel was born in 2020, May 2020. My mother calls me from Amman and she tells me, there was a closure. Everything was closed, no doctors, nothing. She calls me all the way from Amman and she tells me that, you need to hurry up. You need to get him circumcised on the 8th day or else the boy will not be clean. We're the only Arabs who do that. While you go to Palestinians in Gaza, the native Gazans, not the refugees, because there are refugees from the rest of historical Palestine who went into Gaza. They make up more than 60% of the Gaza population. But there are Gazans, those are native Gazans. Those are Egyptians. They speak Egyptians. And let me add one more important note. This is political. This is not entertaining for those watching. This is not entertaining a History Channel themed concept. This is where the whole problem started, and this is how the whole problem could end. If we recognize our roots, it doesn't mean you have to convert. I'm a Muslim. I just I just had my prayers 15 minutes ago. But you need at least to reckon that the people you are fighting with are your folks, and therefore reckon their legitimacy into the land, and eventually they will recognize your legitimacy here somewhere. We find something in common which would prevent what's really going on. Now that said, this is where let's sum the whole thing up with one word. Give me the word that the Arabs use as a racist slur against the Palestinians. They call us Yehudi. Yehudi. This by itself sums it up. I grew up listening to those who don't like the Palestinians, including some of our friends in Jordan, calling the Palestinians Hadol Palestiniya Yahud. These are Palestinians, they're Jews, as in a very condescending way. It's the fact that the characteristics of the Palestinian itself, the Palestinian ability to build from nothing, the Palestinian ability to excel against all odds, the Palestinian ability to create rather than destroy, the Palestinians' ability to survive against all of their enemies. Look how many Arab enemies tried to destroy the Palestinian people. The largest and the most ruthless of all enemies is the Hashemite regime rule in Jordan. We are dealing with a government that follows literally the Nazi tactics, preventing us from business, isolating us from education, isolating us from all government jobs, recognizing our Jordanian passports with a stamp, obstructing everything we do, and nonetheless, we still rule Jordan. We still control it. We still hold the economy, despite the fact that the ruling class has tried to strip us of all of it. These characteristics of the Jew, these characteristics of a Jewish person, is exactly what makes us a fish out of water when we deal with our Arab brothers and sisters. We are not exactly the dish of choice, and they are definitely not exactly ours.
Okay, thank you. The next question is if you can add a bit, because you started with this, about your family story, and let me just add that Sorah is mentioned in the Bible from the activity of Samson, the hero, and this is today kibbutz. But you told me more about the origin of your family and other families from this original village. Can you add a bit about it?
Well, the way we are told that we've been there since King David. So, this is not my family. This is most of the West Bank. This is most of Palestine. This is, as an academic myself, you can only read Ilan Pape's books, who's not a fan of Israel. The man is basically anti-Israel in many ways. He admits in one of his books that the Afandi class, British Palestine was a two-class system, or like a two-caste system. The Afandis, which were mostly immigrants and foreigners from Egypt and from Syria, and the majority, which is fallahim, which is villagers, al-fallahin, peasants like my ancestors. The peasants are the ones who have never been represented until I came along. I'm basically the first ever fallahim politician representing the Palestinian majority, at least in Jordan. The fallahim majority in Israel, or what used to be Palestine at one point, those people are the real Palestinians. They are the majority. They have a different food. And by the way, do not intermarry into what you call al-Midin, which means natives of the cities like Shem and like Jerusalem. Most people from Jerusalem, that's a different story. Most so-called Arabs from Jerusalem are from Morocco, and they arrived in 1886 during the Moroccan cholera, and they never left. And this would need a lot of whole chapter looking at it. But that said, we speak in a completely different accent. We say things like the letter K, we say cha, cha. So instead of kif halak, chef halak, and the letter ka, as in qal, as in said, we say instead of said qal, we go kal. We replace it with the letter K. This accent, which many people, in the Middle East make fun of us because of it, that accent is only spoken within the ranks of our people. And that accent came actually from Al-Andalus.
Wow.
When the Inquisitions began and the Crusaders, or what you call them, the Catholics and of rulers of Spain began butchering both the Muslims and the Jews. Inquisitions, yeah. When the slaughter began, the Muslim world was a safer option for Jews, and many of them under the Ottomans, many relocated to the Sanjaq al-Quds, which is called the al-Quds Jerusalem Governorate, which is today's Israel, Palestine. And they brought with them, they were very educated from that, Al-Andalus, and they were the teachers of the original population in Palestine. They taught them the Torah and the teachings of the Jewish Sharia. And therefore, to make yourself look more educated, more important, you spoke in their dialect. Yes, Palestinian Fallahim's dialect is the exact Andalusian dialect of both the Arabs and the Jews at the time. So the connection is deeper than we think. But there's also another connection, which, you can speculate. This is, I'm an academic. What I will say next is a speculation, not science. But let me do this. The Palestinian Fallahim thobe, I think, most of you are aware of it. It's the thobe that women actually wear. It's the Palestinian thobe. It's got some certain beautiful stitching to it, mostly in red. And it comes on both. Either the whole dress would be white or would be black. It's very resemblant to the same kind of traditional dresses that people wear in Ukraine. And I know that when Jews were getting butchered in Ukraine in the late 1800s, many of them relocated to Palestine, to Ottoman Palestine. Example of that is both my grandmothers, both. We know their family in Zora and Sar'a, the Sagadia family, also known as Salah family. They came from Ukraine. Confirmed. They came to Palestine, arrived from Ukraine. And this is why They are not, to this day, they are considered, of a lower ranking than the rest of the village because they are foreigners. They are not the real thing. As far as my family is concerned, we are told some say Cohen, and some say Lafi. Either way, Cohen or Lafi, the Cohens came from the Lafi, so it's very close. I know the family, most of it, except for myself, they have a very beautiful voice. They can sing. And so that would make me, if I have to guess, I'll call them Lavis. My mother's family, we know they're Sephardis. We tracked their ancestors in Tunisia, in Jerba. They have the same last name. And from Jerba, we tracked the same family from Sicily and eventually from Toledo. They fled through the Inquisitions from Toledo to Sicily, which was under Muslim rule. Then when the Muslims lost it, they went back to Tunisia. This explains the high number of Jews in Jerba and Tunisia. And from Tunisia, they came to the Holy Land. We can trace them, and I was able to trace one of my mother's, ancient Jewish relatives from Toledo, who now lives in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay, very good. Now we are going into the DNA direction. What was found among Palestinians here west of the Jordan is that 82%, it was a sample of about 200 people, so it's not fully accurate, but it's not far from accurate. 82% of the Palestinians are very, very close to Ashkenazi Jews, and also close to the rest of the Jews, a bit less. And this was done on the Y chromosome, and about some haplotypes that occur both among Jews and among Palestinians. But in addition, what we have found out, which is less known, there is a disease called tai-zacks that among the regular Jews, if it happens, the gene that creates it is 1 in 30 Ashkenazis. So but it reflects in reality only if the two parents are of this gene, and which means the probability is 1 to 900. So among the Jews, when the woman is pregnant, then they check the baby if the parents have this gene, if the baby has got it from the two parents, and then they make an abortion. Among Haredim, they don't want abortions, so they check it before the marriage. And if there is a problem and probability for abortion, they do not permit the marriage. In the same sense, it was found the same phenomena with the same number was found among Palestinians, especially also it's known in Jordan. And initially the government instructed the Bedouins and others to make this check before the wedding. But there was not too much obedience, so the government made the rule that before the marriage, they must check the genes, and if both parents got this disease-creating gene, they will not permit the marriage. Did you hear anything about it?
Yes, and in Jordan, I can give you the Arab name for the disease. It's called thalassemia.
Here it's called tai-zacks or the crazy cow. It has two names. Because if a cow gets it, then she behaves very horribly. So now, can you elaborate what is the effect of these findings? There are 8 genetic tests that show the resemblance between Jews and Palestinians in general, and I'm not getting into those now, but can you tell me what is the reaction of a typical Palestinian in Jordan when he hears about this resemblance between the two sides?
Okay, it have to be down to worth. First of all, one of the families, one of the research documentaries Tzivi Mitznai himself did was about the Machamra family. The Machamra family, also known as Weinman. Machamra are confirmed Jews. They are confirmed Jews. They're one of the very few Palestinian tribes whom you would talk to, and they would tell you, our ancestors Jewish. They would acknowledge that. And even you documented it on television. But one of, a couple years after you made your show, a couple of Machamra cousins walked into a cafe in Tel Aviv, ordered 2 lattes, one of them with caramel flavor, and then calmly pulled 2 machine guns and killed 6 people and shot over 20. So the conviction, the ideology is much stronger than blood, because convictions and ideology convince you that you are following God's actions. I have been listening to a change of tone recently. They often say it, that quote unquote, we are the real Jews. So when it comes to the Arabs, because you need to know that sadly, many Arab governments have made it their bread and butter to attack the Palestinians. Top in those are the Hashemite regime in Jordan. They've got, on the social media, it's very complicated, but I'll try to sum it up. They launched their bots and their, agents, disgustingly attacking the Palestinians, calling them names, including calling them Jews. So this has been consistent now for 3 years, where thanks to an Arab Gulf state and her intelligence, and thanks to the Jordanian intelligence controlling the social media and attacking Palestinians 24/7. So the automatic response has recently, like over the past year, became, okay, we are Jews, that's why we're better than you. We are Jews, we're not Arabs. Yes, they still hate Israel and they still want to liberate Palestine, but there's a consciousness of who they really are. And we have to be, academic about the whole thing. As much as a leader, I have to be honest, in the sense that the recent year have brought up a lot of consciousness, a lot of awakening for the Palestinians. This is a very political subject. The war in Gaza after the 7th of October massacre has exhibited who the Arab countries really are toward us. I've got names I can mention, people, influencers on social media. One of them is famous. His name is Azir. He lives in Belgium. I don't know where he hails from, but he's Palestinian. He lives in Belgium. His name is Azir. Famous guy. He's always fighting with the Saudis, and then he moved to the Emiratis and the Jordanians. So after the 7th of October, and when we witnessed how many Arab regimes were officially insulted the Palestinians, calling the name, launching defamation campaign against them, and even influencing, trying to prolong the war, not helping the Palestinians, Sisi closing the borders for the Palestinians, not allowing them to leave from Gaza, Jordan charging the Hashemite king, charging $400,000 per flight to drop the food in Gaza, and half of it dropping on their heads. A lot of things happened. There's a change, like this dear guy I'm just telling you. They're saying things like there's an awakening that we don't belong with the Arabs. We sound different. We look different. We eat different. We operate different. We achieve different. We are wired completely different. Nothing against them, but we're different. Nothing against China, nothing against Poland, but we're different. Nothing against Mexico, but I and Mexicans are not one. And same goes to my Arab brothers and sisters. We love them, but we're not the same. So this awakening into the people of Jordan could be a game changer. I was one, especially in a position of leadership, to pioneer it. I'm proudly always calling ourselves, I've been doing it for a decade now, calling us on television the Jews of the Arabs, which is, a name we're very proud of, to be Jewish, the Jews of the Arabs, not necessarily through DNA, but through achievement and ammo. We definitely are Jews.
Okay, thank you. About the Machamra, especially from Yatta, I have many friends there that support my direction, But what happened with the massacre that they made in Tel Aviv, this is because they are pressed by terrorists, because their origin is known. You have to show your devotion to our cause and kill Jews. Otherwise, we'll kill your family. So they send them to sacrifice themselves in order to create damage to the Jews and heighten the conflict and hatred. So I want to go to the next question. I know about non-Palestinians, to my knowledge, in Jordan, like respected the Bedouin tribes like the Khawitat, Ka'abne, Tayaha. Tayaha is the staff of several tribes. I know about their Jewish origin. Do you consider them Palestinians or not? And the same thing about Bani Sakhar. They are not Bedouins. They are about 80,000 in Jordan, but we know very well that the name is taken from the sons of Issachar. Bani is sons, like Bnei, and Sakhar is the Issachar, one of the tribes of Israel. Do you consider all those or part of them Palestinians or non-Palestinians?
First of all, let's agree that the modern Arab states' name are all fake. There was never a country called Qatar, never a country called Kuwait, never a country called Libya. Libya was Tunisia, you know. There was never a country called Moroccan Sahara, and definitely not a country called Jordan or Palestine. These are fake colonial names which were based strictly on divide and conquer. On the other hand, they are just as fake as the United Arab Emirates, there was never a United Arab Emirates just for 54 years ago. Same goes for Belgium. You know, there was never a country called Belgium. So let's transcend the names. The fact that up until 1948, there was a country under the British occupation called the British Mandate for Palestine. Some people get, you know, some kind of allergy when they hear the word Palestine. Some of my Jewish friends, and well, you know, the name, okay, the Romans enforced it on the Jews after they occupied the land, but you know, the name was in the books all that time, so it does exist. We can't just deny it. But regardless, fast forward today. Today we have, you know, up until 1948, people in that region called, you know, today's Jordan were Palestinians. They traveled with a Palestinian passport. I'll tell you why. Because up until 1948, the British mandate had not ended in eastern Palestine. So up until 1948, the Hashemite so-called kingdom in Jordan was still under the British mandate. It was a self-rule, a local self-rule. So there was still an occupation. This is why Jordan was not recognized by any international body at the time. And it took Jordan another 7 years to get recognized after 1948. That said, those people were Palestinians traveling with Palestinian British passports, all of them. And they were also using the Palestinian pound, which is, you know, Palestinian pound, bearing both names, Palestine and Eretz Israel, on the face value of the currency. Long answer for a very short question, but I'll say this. You also need to mention the Khawitat.
Sure, I mentioned it.
Yeah, the Khawitat. Yeah, you mentioned, yeah. So need to mention the correct, more common name, which is the Khawitat, which is in southern Jordan tribe. Yes, they're not plenty. They, you know, a couple 3,000 at most, but that's considered big for so-called Jordanian tribes, or you know, East Palestinian tribes, whatever you want to call them, so-called Jordanians, so-called Palestinian. And also there's also you can go about, you know, when it comes to folk tales, there are other names. There's one tribe, the Bani Sakhar are also confirmed because their native location, they came into southern Amman or al-Amad or that region, or Madaba. They originally came from Sinai, and then they were thought of as the Jewish tribe at the time. They may not admit it right now, but they definitely had an affinity to deal with the Jews. Sheikh Mithqal al-Fayez, their leader, their eldest, was one of the first Arab sheikhs of the region to deal with the Jewish agency and accept money from the Jewish agency and sell land to the Jewish agency, which they still own today. Jews own huge property in Jordan sold by him, documentation of his communication with the Jews, requesting a vehicle, a big vehicle for his as a gift from the Jewish agency, and goes on and on. There's even more than that. There's the Abedat family. Just recently, the former Jordanian intelligence chief and prime minister, Ahmed Abedat, passed away. The Abedat family were known, and these are folk tale when it comes about them, like basically spoken history. We need to verify it and do the research, but I've listened to it for some of their elders, and some of the elders in the region where they stem from, in northern Jordan, Irbid. The Abedat family were originally a Jewish family from southern Syria, and they came and they diverged into two families. One was the Abedat, which is quite famous in Jordan. They're not big on numbers, but they're known to be Jewish, at least history-wise. And the other family is Abu al-Afia. Abu al-Afia are Palestinians. Abu al-Afia, they're known for their white skin. Abu al-Afia are known for like the European Ashkenazi appearance. And they're known for being incredibly intelligent. Example of that is one of the former chief Boeing, executives in Seattle is Richard Abu al-Afia or Rashid Abu al-Afia. So you're talking about characteristics which you cannot overlook. Yes, we need a lot of research, academic research, and on top of that, the concept that Tzivi Mitzna yourself are trying to promote, which is let's make people more aware of their heritage, so the hatred would look ridiculous. The hatred would stop. The claim that we must kick all of the Jews out by the end of time should stop. The claim that Palestinians do not exist, like some Jews say it, they might then see that it's counterproductive. It's not exactly productive when it comes to the Jewish cause.
Thank you. By the way, there is a famous Rabbi Reuven Abulafia from Spain that was a very famous Kabbalist, very high-level rabbi. Now, I just want to make sure that you know about 5,000 Cohens in Jordan, in a village near Irbid in Amman, and there are many more Lafis. Do you know why they are called Lafis?
Because they belong to the Lafi tribe?
Yeah, exactly. You don't have a sukun or le in the beginning of the word in classical Arabic, so it was Lavi, but you don't have a V in Arabic, so they make it Lafi. There are many that lived in Amman, in a neighborhood in Jerusalem, and in Jisr el-Zarqa. We know about
what's the name again? What's the name?
Of the village?
Yeah.
In Jerusalem, it is Bet Safafa, and in a bit center, like near Caesarea, it's called Jisr el-Zarqa, the bridge.
So you're talking about the Lafi family.
Yeah. And what I want to add now is that there was a survey done in 1885 approximately by the Ottomans that showed in both sides of the Jordan River that 80% of the population testified and signed about being of a Jewish origin. 80%, both sides. And many labor immigrants came here, but some of them were originally from here. They left and returned, and the foreigners left here, I mean about the west side of the Jordan, left here as refugees in 48, 49, and 67. So the situation now is more or less as it was then. And in the west side, in addition to the 80%, there is another 10 which are Samaritans, which are mainly from 2 tribes of Israel. Now, the importance of this is that this information, this survey is known to the Jordanian Mukhabarat and to the Egyptian Mukhabarat and also to the Mossad from where I got it. And the meaning of this is, or the reflection of this is that King Hussein, 1 week before Sadat was murdered, and this was before, in 82, before the peace between Israel and Jordan, Hussein wrote to Sadat a letter saying, if we really want peace, we must make known the identity of the Palestinians. So I don't know if you heard about it, but this is kept very secretly in an archive.
Do you have a document or evidence proving that?
The document exists in an archive in Ankara.
Whose archive?
Yeah. And we asked a previous commander of the Turkish Air Force to make a photo at least of some summary, and he was afraid. This is a major risk. But the Mukhabarat, the Jordan Mukhabarat knows about it.
Well, you brought something very interesting. First of all, as an academic, to believe it, I need to see a document.
So ask Erdogan. Okay, if you want to have any influence there, ask him.
Now, this is, I believe you personally, but for now to be taken officially, we need the document, which we will be able to find someday. But that's not the problem. You brought something very interesting, and I want people to pay attention. Having been in the field, having served for the U.S. Department of State, or State Department, Wazarat al-Kharijiyya al-Amrikiyya, I've come to know certain things. I'm not claiming any sort of official capacity there, but all I can say is just I've heard the best way I can push it. There is an obsession within the world of intelligence with DNA. Basically, a lot of intelligence agencies are basically obsessed with your genetic makeup. And one of those agencies who are most obsessed about who you are, where you belong from, who your parents were, is the MI6, the British intelligence, as they were advancing the colonial British agenda into the Middle East and the region. So the first thing they would do is they send a researcher who would masquerade as a Bedouin, collecting information about who is who everywhere, down to every village, who's married to who's related to who, and so forth. And this also applies to the Jordanian intelligence. The Jordanian intelligence, which is a very badly managed organization, is only good at one thing, which is isolating the Palestinians and calculating who they really are, and harvesting the origins into records. Basically, when you fill an application in Jordan requesting, maybe a burial site or a grave digging permit, the first thing they would ask is, who are you? Second question, where are you originally from? And now they've advanced the application. They would ask you, where is your parents from? This is very strictly to the Jordanian apartheid system to isolate the Palestinians and to basically keep him away from all government jobs that there are. Now, here's the question. Why is this obsession with isolating the Palestinians? For countless reasons. What you mentioned could be one of them. Because the obsession in Jordan is unreal. Even in Iraq, Saddam's regime was against the Shiite majority and the Shiite and Kurdish majority. Nonetheless, every once in a while, he would allow one of them to come close to the regime, at least for a facelift. The Jordanian Mukhabarat, or intelligence, they are obsessed. They don't want Palestinians anywhere. And it tells you that there is something that's causing them this whole phobia towards the Palestinians. Beyond 1970 war, beyond, this is like an obsession, not only a tactic. That said, I wouldn't be surprised if what you said is actually true. And you need to know that the former crown prince of Jordan, his name is Hassan bin Talal, King Hussein's brother, was at one point, very obsessed with researching the origins of the Palestinians. And that leads into a much bigger issue, the fact that there is a reputed connection blood connection between the Hashemites themselves and the Jews. I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, and this is the last point for today. I heard from a Palestinian in Bet Surif. Bet Surik is in Hebrew Nachal Sorek, and they lived in Jordan for a while and then returned to the original place, but instead of one village, they built 4 villages because the population grew over time. One of the villages is Katana, which means we lived here when they returned. But one of them was a woman, a Palestinian woman of a Jewish age, because they are telling us that they are 99% Jewish in Bet Surik. So a woman from this village, when they were still in Jordan, married King On, the root of the Hashemite dynasty. In addition, in 1921, Emir Abdallah, that became later the king, when he visited Khalil, Hebron, he was guarded by Jews, 3 Jews from called Abir, that were very talented with shabariyas, and they are from Chaban. And he was guarded by them because they were devoted and loyal to those of a Jewish origin, like to the Emir of Kuwait. Kuwaiti and the particular family of the ruler are known for being a Jewish origin, and many of the others, I will not get into it now, and they were also the guardians of one Saudi king, and so on. And we have enough knowledge about the Jewish origin of most of the rulers of Jordan, of the Arab Peninsula, except for Oman that I don't know. So on the base of that, the royal family is of Jewish origin, and Bedouins, respected Bedouins that we mentioned, are of a Jewish origin. Do you see this as a possibility of a common denominator of all the population of Jordan to stop the conflict, internal conflict there, and in the same time to stop the conflict between the Palestinian and Israel, to all unite together as the people of Israel, though initially it be a confederation where in Jordan the people of Israel are Muslims, the vast majority, and here there are Jewish, the vast majority.
Okay,
So
answering your question, sir. We didn't, I'm, having been in the field in both very problematic countries in Iraq and doing, the operational work in Iraq and Jordan and elsewhere. I've come to be more realistic about things. And one of the key things is we don't need another kumbaya moments where things don't even actually happen. So we need to get things straight. The biggest obstacle we have is the ideology. Some so-called experts, which I would happily call them fools, keeping scaring the people from Islam and telling them that Islam itself is evil. They didn't know jack. They didn't know anything. The fact is, it's the ideology presented by certain books of the Hadith, and this is how I'm going to answer your question. There is unconfirmed stories in the Hadith about a Messiah, a Muslim Messiah that's going to come by the end of time. His name is Al-Mahdi. Al-Mahdi allegedly would come, he's a Hashemite, and he's going to come from Saudi Arabia to liberate Palestine. And we're going to be east of the River Jordan, which is in today's Jordan. And you guys are going to be west of the river. And we're going to chase you and butcher the last remaining one of you up until you're going to hide behind trees and rocks. And the trees and rocks are going to scream our names and tell you, hey, you Muslim, here's a Jew right behind me, come and kill him. This story in the Hadith is not even confirmed. He was mentioned in 4 different stories, while we have more than 1 million stories in the books of the Hadith. Story is unconfirmed, and it's suspected to be untrue with no evidence for it. Nonetheless, the ideology, the Jordanian government, most Arab governments, the biggest foundation of their story, even in their school books, is the story about Al-Mahdi coming by the end of time. So the first, and it's very easy to debunk. Even some Islamists, radical Islamist scholars, and I can give you names, they're arguing that this whole Al-Mahdi business is not true. So first, we need to erase that. And second, we need to tell him that we are all related. So they're going to even fix a problem in Jordan. The Hashemite regime has survived through divide and conquer. The Hashemite media keeps inciting the East Bank minority against the Palestinian West Bank majority in Jordan. If we tell them that we're all related, that we connect to one another, that we are unique in many, many ways more than others, that we are builders, we are basically the epitome of the Chon HaOlam, building the universe, building the world out of nothing. That could change a lot in our mindset, and it definitely could change a lot towards the Jews in Israel, because the first concept we get is they keep telling you, quote unquote, Jews came from Poland. I tell them, how about we say Russia, Ukraine? They say, no, only Poland. So all Jews in Israel came from Poland, as far as we are taught. And in addition, the Jews are Khazar family, that's quote unquote fake Jews, which DNA proves otherwise. DNA suggests that the Khazar are actually Jews. The Ashkenazim are Jewish people, native Jewish people. Evidence of that the Palestinians, most of them, they have Ashkenazim DNA. We need to do more research because, a lot of people, I like you so much, Sivi, but, a lot of people would like to think of you as, this jolly nice guy who's seeking a come-by moment for Israel and Palestine. We need to finance a sample study in which the sample could be used to generalize the findings. We should be able to generalize the findings. So the study done by Hadassah Hospital is not enough. It's a good, huge indicator, but we need the sample. We need people to volunteer. We need people to basically have something where we can generalize the finding. I can tell you about myself. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. There's only one God and Muhammad is his prophet. But at the same time, I can tell you openly that I am very proud that most of my people on both of the banks of the river come from Jewish heritage. This is, I'm going to say this in Arabic and let those who speak Arabic try to analyze it. This is why our people, Palestinians/Jordanians, from both sides of the river, إن تركتهم تد وإن حاربته اشتد. إن تركتهم تد وإن حاربته اشتد. If you let them be, they dominate. If you fight against them, they become tougher, which is exactly how Am Yisrael operates. When they are fought against, they come out stronger, the Jews. When you let them be, they dominate and they excel. Very proud to be called Jewish. If my fellow Arabs would like to use it as an insult, I would wear the word Yahudi as a badge of honor.
Thank you. I just want to say 2 sentences about the Mahdi. Khamenei is a medium. and he gets information, instruction what to do. Ahmadinejad said that we are making all this chaos and all this fuss and all this stress and so on just in order to bring the Mahdi. And he later said that the Mahdi is an Israeli. And Ahmadinejad is known for their previous family name in Armenic, a talit maker, and they came from a town that was known of making talit. That's what the Jews put on their body like a kafia, but other color. And we found that Ahmadinejad has a relative in Ra'anana here, in Israel, a Jewish relative. And on top of it, what we found as well is that 35% of the Iranian are of their origin is Jewish as well. They were forced to convert. So about the genetic studies, there is a lot that was done. I found many other interesting information. We don't need any more funding for this, but it cannot fit now into this lecture. So thank you very much. Maybe we'll continue some other time after we discuss more among ourselves.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay. Oh.
We want to thank Mr. Misinai and Mr. Zahran for another illuminating program. And also Adi has a question or comment.
Did Mudar already leave? I think he did. Yeah, I think he left. I just wanted to ask him, I saw him at Oxford speaking, and I wanted to ask him what the response was after he shared what he shared. Did you see that? Did you see that video clip of him? Lowell?
No.
Okay, I'll post it for you. But yeah, he spoke, and I really wanted to ask him what kind of response he got from them, because he just did one on the 5th. Let me see. No, this one he did one, the latest one, the one that we've seen was, I think, let me see, what does this say? They show him doing one in 2019, and that's getting passed around. And then they did another one in 2023. And then now they have him doing another one in October 26, 2025. So he's got a lot of YouTubes up there. And so I wanted to ask him, how's he doing when he's putting these YouTubes up and sharing he's sharing what he just shared here, what kind of response he's getting. It'd be interesting to know. But this was excellent. Excellent.
Thank
Absolutely
you.
Excellent. Thank you. And the question,
there was a limit of an hour. So because of the limit, he left us.
yes.
But I will discuss with him. Maybe we'll come with more ideas to discuss, and then you will have the ability to ask your question and get the answer. In the meantime, I will try to get this information for you later.
Okay,
What
so
was the
we're still
response?
recording.
Yes.
Want to thank Mr. Misinai for another illuminating program. This was episode 25, and we're looking forward to episode 26 in a month. God willing, we're all still here. And thank you to Mr. Misinai and Mr. Zahran, the Jordanian Palestinian leader, now resident in London. And we wish our viewers and listeners all the best. Shalom from Rehovot and Jerusalem. And we thank Adi for joining us.
צופות וצופי הערוץ היקרים. אם אהבתם את מה שאתם שומעים ורואים, אנא שתפו. אם אתם אוהבים את הערוץ, אנא יירשמו אליו, והנדיבים שביניכם, אנא צרפו תרומה קטנה, כל הפרטים לרכישת ספרים, להרמת תרומה לערוץ, בתגובה הראשונה. תודה רבה לכם.